Leaving 2019 behind also meant leaving an entire decade behind as well. And in doing so, nothing felt more appropriate than to rank my favourite gaming picks for the top 5 games of the 2010s. Or teenies, as that's what they're sometimes called. Now, before I get started, obviously I have not played every game this past decade, nor have I of any decade for that matter, but I have tried to dip my toes into as many as I can over the years. And whilst some of my choices will not be to everybody's liking, I have gone for ones that I actually think mean something to me for one reason or another. Ah, isn't that nice? Number 5. Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 1. Back when The Walking Dead was regarded as actually somewhat of a promising show, companies understandably so tried to get the most out of the graphic novel branded IP, and of course, one of the ways they tried to do this was through video games. And unlike their later attempt, this one actually kind of worked out. Telltale pushed out what is perhaps their most famous choice-driven episodic adventure game in 2012. And it's pretty easy to tell that they've tried to recapture that lightning-in-a-bottle type product ever since. And understandably so.
What is your problem, Quill?
What starts out as you having your doubts about your very own character Lee quickly grows into a game where you end up liking him so much once he's tasked with looking after little sweet Clementine.
Well, I reckon you didn't do it then.
A duo that's perhaps one of my favourites around. It was one of the first of the decade that seemingly had a lot of father figure leads protecting their precious, for one reason or another, little girls. There are 5 episodes this season, and each one can take around an hour or 2, all of which are great fun and take you to new locations and characters with each episode, presenting new challenges and moral debating choices to be made. With what is perhaps my favourite episode from anything the Walking Dead brand has ever produced. I mean, the score alone makes it all worthwhile, and often reminds me of Lee's sad, slow voice, whilst having Clementine in the background every now and then, asking, "But why, Lee?" Yeah. Number 4. Rec Room. Virtual reality seemingly took over my interest for the latter half of the decade, and thanks to Rec Room alone, it almost took most of my free time for a while as well. What may appear on the surface to be an overly simplistic social space just in VR is actually one of the most enjoyable games around. And did I mention that it's entirely free to play? With online games of first-person shooters like Paintball and Capture the Flag, up to 4-player cooperative dungeon crawling type quests, and some more social additions like charades. I never really find myself losing interest. I mean, you've even got a Battle Royale mode in there as well, something of which I enjoyed so much that I made an entire video about. Even if you do get bored, the game offers community-generated content to play around and explore in, some of which are crazily fun and downright awesome. Within both my PSVR and Oculus Quest, Rec Room is where I can be found hanging out the most. Quietly and alone, might I add. Number 3. The Elder Scrolls V. Skyrim. Even after having it shoved onto every single platform imaginable, including Amazon's Alexa, Skyrim still stood tall as one of my favourite games year to year. I first experienced it on the Xbox 360 in 2012, first through visits to friends' houses, and then eventually within the comfort of my own home, where of course I would quickly fall victim to its attractively deep and expansive fantasy world. I'd even end up raving on about my travels to my friends whilst at school, almost feeling like I was sharing tales of unique adventures of dungeon crawling and sword fighting. But of course, everyone else was having similar, not as different experiences themselves, but that didn't make it feel any less special. The dragons were returning to Skyrim, and I truly felt like I was important in doing something about it. With the arrival of virtual reality and a PSVR port of the game in 2017, I once again got the chance to get immersively lost to this world, and this time, even more so. And this is all without ever having experienced the Skyrim modding scene for myself firsthand. Yep, that's an extra layer that I'm yet to explore in the new decade. Number 2. Grand Theft Auto 5/online. I couldn't go putting one over the other, as both could easily have had this top spot to their own. GTA 5 was the game that got me back into gaming after an admittedly long hiatus from gaming in general. Throughout secondary school, I'd kinda drifted away from gaming due to spending more and more time with actual, real, not made up friends. I guess I somehow enjoyed socializing to an extent back then. It wasn't until the hype of GTA 5 releasing during my early months at college that finally changed. Despite having what may seem like a rather generic story on the outside, the single-player experience hooked me through its wacky characters and the series' divisive return to taking things a little more sarcastically.
That wasn't the request.
Within the first week or so of it releasing, it became the first Grand Theft Auto that I'd ever managed to complete. Online wasn't around for another few weeks, but once that arrived as well, I knew that the game wouldn't be one that I'd be turning away from for a very long time. And even though I'm in no way a party chat kind of guy, even I had a few sessions with friends via microphone just to keep playing what at the time was quickly becoming my new favourite game. Not only was the open world the most fun of any game I'd played prior, but it became the best open world to explore with my brother and Kathleen as well. We'd often get all three of our individual consoles out, set up the TVs side by side, sit comfortably on the sofa together, and spend long hours into the night annoying the rest of our family trying to sleep upstairs because we'd be getting more and more aggressively loud, as more and more we'd be dying via other random players repeatedly one-shotting us from somewhere in the map. It didn't help that they added the Hydras either, or that I'd always try to get my revenge on them, but there's just so much to do together online, and the constant updates that Rockstar added to the game over the years only helped in us wanting to play it more and more. Not to mention the festive setting around Christmas making me that little bit extra happier. Oh yeah. And before I get to my number 1 pick, let's share the honourable mentions. Of course, there's Minecraft, which technically released in 2011, so yeah, it counts. BioShock Infinite, and Slender. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, my number 1 pick is Tomb Raider. I mean, did you expect anything else? From endangering her crew in search of what others doubted her for believing in, to regretting those very choices when becoming shipwrecked on a mysterious death-ridden island, and losing her friends along the way, to slowly building herself back up to save them from any further harm. Tomb Raider and what Lara Croft had to go through in the game sold me on the idea that games can capture my interests, both emotionally and dramatically, just as much as any great movie or TV show ever could. I mean, yes, it's not without its fair share of flaws. The game does have too many underdeveloped supporting characters, and yes, a lack of any actual tomb raiding in the main story. But literally everything else this game does, it does exceptionally well for me. I mean, I even enjoy the online multiplayer, so yeah. If the 2000s gave me James Bond and a license to kill, then the 2010s gave me Lara Croft and a sense of death-defying, mysterious adventure.